Thank you so much.
Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Well, hi everyone. Good to see y'all today. My name is Natalie Smith, and I'm with Trio Student Support Services at University of Oregon. Um, Today, we're just going over a few Excel tips and tricks. I know Matt Bisek did a training that was kind of a lot of really fast tips and tricks in a variety of software programs. So I just wanted to go over Excel because I absolutely love Excel and we've been able to use it in our program in a variety of ways. I'm going to post a link in the chat. This is a link to the document that I'm going to be going through during this training. It's available on the OTA website. Oops, I'll wait for a second while the note takers say hi. Okay. Um, this is just a Word doc that I'm going to be using. It's kind of an outline of what we're going to talk about today. So the yeah, if y'all want to post in the chat just a hi and maybe where you're from. Also, maybe let's see, on a scale of 1 to 5. How much do you love Excel? Where 1 is don't really love it or it's kind of scary to 5. Oh, you don't have permission. I don't know how to change the permissions actually because it's OTA, so I'm going to you have to have access to their drive folder to be able to access it. So let me share my screen um, with the document and then there'll be some instructions. Actually, I can send you it right now too. There'll be some instructions about how you can actually get access to the OTA shared drive so that you can have a copy of this. Uh, I'll send it now. I don't know how quick they will be able to grant access to the drive, but once you have access to the drive, you'll have access to that document. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. And this is the document that we will be going through today. All right, scroll back up to the top. So again, this is Excel tips and tricks. We're going to talk about a few ways of what you can use Excel for, how to use a few Excel features in some more depth. And these are things that we actually use in our own program. And then also where you can learn more about how to use Excel. So I was going to say post in the chat. I know there's mostly note takers here today, but there's a few um, in the flesh folks as well. Would you mind posting in the chat just how much experience you have with Excel, if it's something that you have a lot of experience with, or you're kind of a newbie and wanting to learn a few things? You can feel free to shout out as well. Liking Excel but arguing with it sometimes. Yep, I get that very much. 8.5 out of 10. I like that too. Um, a few party tricks. That's one of my favorite things about Excel actually, and just kind of any program, any of the Office programs, is that there's so many people that have used it for so many different things that you can really gain experience from pretty much anybody. I also, like you, Crystal, use it for pretty much absolutely everything. I wanted to go through just a few things you could use it for. These might be some ideas that are new to you. I actually just Googled it right before we met too, because I have my go-to ideas, and I even found some more ideas, even just doing a quick internet search. And this is not even including all the personal uses. Like some people use it to track the best way to beat their favorite video games or their workout tracking, things like that. But some of the things you can use it for is just really simple calculations. I do it when I'm just pasting in a bunch of values to get a sum. Sometimes, like people are like, hey, here's our budget for the month. Can you just quickly uh, sum up these invoices? Also for checking my math really quickly if I have to do a couple calculations, because the calculator only holds, as soon as you hit enter, it's gone. You can't see what you actually entered in. A lot of folks use it for budget tracking. I use it for my personal budget. We use it in a variety of different ways, and for our grant budget as well. We worked with our financial department to do this really cool like pending expenses budget, which was really nice. So it actually showed on our actual budget which expenses were pending and hadn't come through yet, so that we could get an actual sort of know how much money we really had left. We use ours extensively for student lists. We have an outreach list. So maybe you're already full for the year, but you want to keep track of some students that have been referred to you by other programs. We use it to track the students that go through our application process and just where they are in the process. So, have they submitted all the documentation yet? Or are we just waiting for their last interview? Have they started the online application but not finished it yet? We also use that in our student list for calculating our disability first gen low income percentages. One of the documents that you'll get access to once you have access to the OTA drive is kind of a simplified version of what we use to sort of track in real time where our percentages are at. Most of the time we're doing fine, but occasionally we have to know, ooh, are we not able to admit just first gen only students or different things like that. Um, we haven't used it as much for this, but you could also use it to track hiring. If you're hiring student workers, or if you're hiring somebody, you could use it to track your applications, even to track the actual documents. We just used it to hire a student social media coordinator. Hi, Sharon. We used it for each of us to be able to kind of rate each student, and then get the highest, we invited the highest average rating students to come and interview with us. Um, document, oh, sorry, tracking services. That's a big one. That's another spreadsheet that I will post, or that's available on the OTA drive once you have access to that. Um, we tried a new thing this last year, or about a year ago, where we had students RSVP for events ahead of time, and then tracked which of them actually came to the event, and then sent follow-up to students who haven't attended at least one event yet for the term. So there's some different ways that you can track services. Also, we had to create a report for the person that's sort of leading our division about how many students received which types of services. So that was pretty easy once all the data was in Excel. You can also use it for things like sign-in sheets. Sometimes it's nice to just have it formatted in anything you need a grid format. You could obviously use Word, but sometimes you can create templates. It's really nice, especially if you have a report or something like that that has a graph that gets updated whenever the data updates. We started at my last position with Gear Up before I was with Trio. We used that for our annual report, and the graph updated as soon as we updated the data, and it made it really nice to create individual reports for the students we worked with. We also currently use it for our tech inventory. We have some loaner laptops for our students. I use it also, you could use it for a to-do list, time management. I use it to track all of my tasks, for tracking the hours for my timesheet. It might be something that's useful if you have student workers that aren't on salary, so I have to actually enter their actual clock in, clock out hours. I use it for my weekly review checklist, and in my research, I saw that some teachers use it for even creating their schedule or their grade books. Um, event or trip planning for guest lists or checklists. And then this was kind of a neat one that I heard about. So I have used it in the past for compiling addresses for mail labels, and you can use mail merge from Word to like really quickly create labels. But what's kind of neat too is you can actually use it for mail merge in Word if you need to send out a bunch of emails and you want to make them more personalized or have different information in each individual email. Uh, Excel is kind of the basis for that, where you can store all that information in an easily accessible format. So a lot of information, a lot of ideas, but it's kind of neat to think that there may be some things that, we always think about Excel as sort of just budget, or when we talk about it with people, they might think, oh, it's only about numbers, but actually you can use it for list management. And it's really nice for a lot of trio purposes where you sort of need lists and uh, and words and text, but also numbers together. Um, Big caveat is if you have a different program or tool that you're using that's working for you, you do not need to change it or create an unnecessary spreadsheet. I probably create many, many spreadsheets because I love it, and I probably use them in places where Word is probably just fine, or even paper and pen is fine. So don't feel like you need to create something when what you're using works just fine. But for me as a visual person, having things in a nice grid format helps my mind stay organized, and especially anything involving hand calculating and numbers, it's much easier to use a spreadsheet where you can kind of quickly see where maybe mistakes pop up. So um, yeah, I just wanted to take a little pause here. Is there any questions, or if you want to post in the chat, either questions or maybe some other things that you've used Excel for that I haven't mentioned? Yeah, and in addition to all these professional things, like I mentioned, a lot of folks use it for other things too. Uh, Recipes, contact lists. It's pretty endless. Anything that you want to be able to sort or filter or add up or just kind of keep in a nice, neat kind of spreadsheet, a grid format. So moving on, I'll move on to the how section. Again, just feel free to jump in with any questions. Um, I want to show y'all a couple of spreadsheets that we have used, and in those spreadsheets, I'll also show you a few of the features that, here, I'll actually just cut and paste it into the chat because I don't know. Actually, that looks awful in the chat, but let's just try it anyway. Um, I'm going to show you a few of the things that you can do with Excel within these spreadsheets. And at the same time, you'll be able to say, hey, this is an example that you could actually go into the OTA drive and be able to download a copy for yourself and perhaps use it in your program if it's useful. So I'm going to stop sharing and then open up the first spreadsheet, this is what we use to sort of track our students from outreach all the way to graduation. And let's see. Okay. So again, this is a sort of a simplified version of the spreadsheet that we are currently using to track our students. We have a database, but it's not one of the main ones that most folks use, like Bloomin. So most of the work that we do it within our database. You don't need to have a spreadsheet be your database. However, for us, it really works well as sort of an overall summary of how many students we have in the program. Maybe if we want to do outreach based on specific topic or specific characteristics of the students. Um, So as you can see, we can track their current status. We have, whether they're new or continuing. We actually just started adding a new status called removed, where they're still in our system as a newer continuing student, but we're pretty sure we're either not going to cohort them, or maybe they haven't come in yet for services for the year, so we're a little bit worried about them, and we don't want to count them in our calculations for the year. So we use those statuses that work for us. We also use it to track notes about the students. For example, like these are all fake names and uh, information, so you can feel free to use this. It's not nothing sensitive information, but like this person's not enrolled, or for this student Pierre Martin, they might be transferring to Ohio. So it's kind of a nice way for us to track things more specific, not to like their services or their academics, but more, are they likely to stay in the program or not stay or transfer. So that's one thing that we do. Another feature of Excel, which probably y'all know, especially since most of you are at least medium familiar, is that you can filter and sort data. So, yes, that's fine. Filter for everybody. The difference between filtering and sorting is filtering sort of just hides anybody that doesn't meet that requirement. It only will show students that meet that requirement. For example, if I just wanted to show the new students on this list, I would go to the status column, I would go to the filter, I would uncheck continuing and uncheck removed, and now it's only showing the new students. I know that's pretty simple, but it's kind of a powerful tool for being able to look at just a little bit of data at a time. Another thing that you can do is sort, which again, I know most folks probably know about, but again, this is really helpful way to get some quick data. So for example, we a lot of times care about when's the last time we served somebody, who are some of the folks that haven't come into our office for a really long time. I think this list might already be sorted for that, but we're going to sort from A to Z, lowest to highest. And we see these are the 3 students that really, haven't come in since the beginning of the term. We really need to do some outreach to them. They've still been served within the, this year, so we could count them as students. But if they don't come in for service again, we might decide to no cohort them. So that's one of the examples of how we use this data. As some of you may know too, another thing that we use on this sheet is you can actually freeze rows and columns. Again, really helpful when you have headers. So if you go to, sorry, side note, this is actually an Excel document that's being opened in Sheets. So in Sheets, it acts mostly the same as Excel, and almost every Excel formula works the same in Sheets versus in Docs. But occasionally, some of the things that you can see up in the menus are slightly different. But in this document, if you go to View, you can freeze. We're just going to say no rows, and we're going to freeze no columns. So now when you're scrolling down the spreadsheet, you can't really see the header at the top. But if you go freeze, we're going to just freeze one row at the top. Now you can see that header at the top, no matter how many, rows you scroll down. And the same thing if you have a lot of data that goes out, if you have a lot of columns and you want to be able to say, see their name or student ID, we can go to view, freeze, we'll just do up to column D. So now no matter how far over we scroll to the side, you'll still be able to see those columns on the left. Another thing, which we'll go into a little bit more depth, but which is really cool, is so say you have your list of students. You've entered in their last date of service, but now it's been updated. So you want to add their newest last date of students, date of service, because you've served a whole bunch of students in the last couple months. there is a way that you can actually write in a formula, which you can see in the formula bar at the top, that can actually retrieve data about this particular student from another spreadsheet. That's one of my go-to formulas. I'll go over it in a little bit more depth after this. But that is like a go-to thing. We love it. So if you say you have your student list, but you forgot to add the email addresses and you need to add them to be able to email that group of students, if you have a list of email addresses and your list of students, as long as they have some kind of unique data in common with each other, such as their student ID, you can basically get any data you need about your students and pull it into a list. I use that all the time. So that is everything that I wanted to show y'all from this tab. I'm gonna go to the eligibility tab. That's where we track our if we're meeting our percentages or not. So this isn't these are all the different types of eligibility a student can have, disabled or disabled and first generation, all three, first gen, low income. You may choose to add up which ones count toward which, how they add up to your percentages. Like, for example, for our first gen, we include our triple qualifiers in with our first gen low income, since first gen low income for us is usually a harder category to fill. For disabled, we use everybody that has DI in their in their eligibility, except for the triple qualifier. So, but what's cool is that we have to use a pivot table. So that's one of the other things I was going to say. Pivot tables are challenging, but they're so cool. So this pivot table, this little section right here, is just summing up the program eligibility for everybody that's on that 24-25 tab. So as soon as a student changes, you add some new students, you take away students, you refresh the data on this tab, and these numbers will update automatically, which is awesome, because then in this section of the table, it adds up our total students, and we get our two most important percentages, our percentage of first gen low income or disability out of the total number, which has to be 2/3. And I can see, okay, we're at 73%. Okay, we're good. We can actually sort of admit anybody we want to right now. We don't have to be super careful about the percentages. And again, for our disability percentages, so at least half of our disability students have to also be low income. We can track that. I'm sorry, 1/3, not half. We can see we're at half, so we're actually doing fine. I won't show you how to do pivot tables. That took me a really long time to learn. Needless to say, it's really worth learning if you have to do this kind of thing a lot, which is make sums of different groups of people. But that is everything that I wanted to show y'all from this spreadsheet. Again, does anybody have any questions? Thanks for the head shake and feedback. I know this is not the most interactive topic necessarily, but again, it's so nice, because I think that's one of the things that I've learned about learning Excel is, and kind of with any computer program, the more times you hear it, the more times you see it, you will pick up more and more things, and your skills are just gonna grow immensely. I did not learn Excel before I became an admin assistant, and then later a program assistant for Trio. And over the years, just my skills have increased a lot just because of learning from everybody. Honestly, most of my bosses have known more than me about these topics. Yeah, we'll go over that, Andres. Yeah, literally, I'll show you my two go-to formulas. The second spreadsheet that I wanted to show you is just an example of our workshop tracking spreadsheet. You should be able to see that on the screen right now. And again, this is really what we're actually using right now. So we have a list of all of our students, their email addresses, just because we email follow-up to students who RSVP'd. We tracked, then we have a column that shows whether they RSVP'd for an event during the term and whether they actually attended an event during the term. And what's so cool is that this is our list. We have a tab for our RSVPs. These are all the students that said, okay, I'm going to come to your welcome event. I'm going to come to your budget workshop. And from here, we can see there's a formula that basically just says, hey, is this student actually on that RSVP list or not? If they haven't RSVP'd, it'll say no. If they have RSVP'd, it'll say yes. So it's a quick way then using the sorting. You can be like, okay, well, I need to follow up with this huge group of people, everybody that didn't RSVP yet, and send out a targeted email. I'm sure y'all can relate where you've signed up for an event and then you get an email that says, don't forget to sign up for the event. Then you're like, I think I signed up for the event, but I don't know. But why are they emailing me? Because I'm pretty sure I already did. So it's kind of a nice thing to have a little bit more targeted outreach. And then the same thing, we have a list of students who attended. So this is the students these are all the students that attended our welcome event, for example. You can go back to your main spreadsheet and see, enter that same formula, just pulling now from a different data source. And it'll show you, okay, here's all the students that actually have attended an event. It's been really helpful for us, especially because our system, I'm not sure again about Bloomin', it'll just show whether they've received a service, but not necessarily attended an event. And we tell our students specifically they need to attend an event. The only other thing I wanted to point out from this spreadsheet was conditional formatting. Again, me being a visual person, this might look very overwhelming to you, like way too many colors. For me, I like a lot of colors, helps me be able to process it. But conditional formatting can say, hey, if it's a yes, make it green. This person's good to go. If it's a no, make it red, so that I know visually that I need to follow up with them. The way that you get to conditional formatting is you highlight whatever cells you want the formatting to apply to. You go up to the formatting menu, go to conditional formatting, and then you have to create rules. I won't go over how to do that today. That's a little bit out of the scope, but at least shows you that this is where you this is where you can find it so that you can, create your own rules. Or if all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I have too many crazy things going on in my spreadsheet, I just need to delete it all. You can just go in and actually, you might say, yeah, I don't really need things in red. I just want it to be all text. You can just go ahead and delete your rules here. Okay. So last thing I wanted to do in this section of kind of the how was, like I said, I really have two go-to formulas that I have used literally so many times. I have them in a Word doc and I just cut and paste them into spreadsheets all the time. And those go-to formulas are, one of them is how to check whether an entry in one list appears in another list, like just a yes, no, like did this student attend an event? And the other one is how to retrieve a value in one column based on a value on another column. I literally love these. They're in some kind of more detailed instructions are in the, I'll post it into the chat right now too. Some more detailed instructions are in that Word doc. So take things from other sheets. Yeah, this is amazing. So I'll post it here. Again, it's not going to look beautiful in the chat, but it's at least you'll get to see the formula. I'll show you an example right now. I'll walk through of how I actually use the formula because it looks like gobbledygook. Like, what is all this? What column do I use? I have it color coded on the Word doc to make it a little bit easier, but we'll show you an example. So I'm going into the chat right now. It's in there. The formula's in there. So let's say this is looking at the spreadsheet, let's say this is our student list on the left-hand side. Let's say this is all of our current students. You want to be able to see whether these students attended your May 25th workshop. Here's a list of all the students that attended your workshop and their IDs. Here's your student list and all their IDs. So I'm gonna make a separate column on our student list, and I'm gonna call it workshop, attended workshop. I guess it didn't like me doing that, adding it to a table. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to remove the filter and add it back on because I want to be able to still filter. And data, create filter. Okay, so attended a workshop. I'm going to cut and paste this formula from the chat with the equal sign, just right into that first cell. And it'll pop up in the formula bar. So there's really only two things you need to change. One is, what's the unique value that you're going to use to look up what you want to find in the other cell. So basically I want to know, did this student ID for Ahmed show up in the list of attendees? So it's already A2, that's his ID. Oops. And now we're going to say, okay, this is where we're looking. And again, this is in the Word document, but we want to say, where do I want to look for that ID? Okay, I'm going to look for it in this column. Even though right now we're looking at it within like one tab, one spreadsheet, you can have totally separate spreadsheets, totally separate tabs. It doesn't matter. It's just when you edit it here in the formula bar, you can just click on the other tab, go to the other tab, and then do the same thing I'm doing is select the column. So did he attend the workshop? Nope. And if you look through this list, you can see, no, he didn't actually attend. So you copy and then paste. Sometimes if you have a table set up in a certain way, it'll sort of autofill everybody else. But as you can see, now you can easily tell, okay, Ahmed, Fatima, James, none of them went, but Jacob Cohen did go to the workshop and Inez went to the workshop. I absolutely love this. This could be for anything, like if you get a list of students who submitted their FAFSA, that's one nice way to check for FAFSA completion. It could be, like I said, if they registered for an event or if they attended an event, or maybe it's a list of students that have been referred by somebody else. So you want to check which of the students have we already sent an email to, or which of the students are already in our outreach list. And then you'll be able to tell, okay, these are all the students who aren't in our outreach list, so I'm going to go ahead and add those so you don't have a bunch of duplicates. Does anybody have any questions about that? Kind of that yes, no, does the student appear in a list? Okay. So I'll go on to the second formula, which is how to retrieve a value in one column based on another. Essentially, how do you get data? For us, this is about students that might be in another table. So, at the university, we have a humongous spreadsheet that we can download from our school with all kinds of tags about the students, all kind of data about the students, which is not in our student management database. Oops, that didn't cut and paste. So sometimes, or we'll get reports from our university. Oops, why did it bullet it all? I don't know. But I'll post just the formula separately here too. Okay. So for example, in the spreadsheet that's on the screen, we have, again, our student list, and then on the right-hand side, we have our student data. And this might have something like their last date of service or their program eligibility for each term. We also track, say, like how many credits the student registered for that term. In this case, we'll use the last date of service as the data that we want to look at. So I'm going to go back to our student table. I'm going to enter in last date of service. Going to remove and then re-add that filter. Okay. Now I'm going to copy and paste that formula again into the table next to the student I want to find out the information for. Again, bunch of number gobbledygook, but in the Word document, it's color coded of which cells do you need to replace with what. So again, we want to find this information about Ahmed. So A2, we just want it to be a student ID. Okay, that is correct. Oops. We want to find which column in this student data table has the student ID in it. So I'm going to delete that. The student ID is in this column. Now we want to know this section of the formula shows which column of the new table has the data you actually want to look at. So I'm going to delete this and then do the last date of service. And it's literally, oh good, autofill. It's literally like magic. I love it. I've used this so many times I can't even I can't even imagine. But what I love too is that it's way less likely for there to be data error if you're like hand typing in numbers. It just takes less time. It is tricky to kind of get comfortable with using the formulas, but you know, you might have some other go-to that you use all the time, or you might only use it once in a while, or if you're just a casual Excel user and you don't want to mess around with formulas, you don't have to. What I think is pretty amazing is you don't have to master everything at once. You can learn one feature at a time and just build on your knowledge a little bit at a time. And I feel like every time you see somebody present or even talk with your colleagues, you're going to learn one more thing that's going to help you. But what I love is those are just my two go-tos that you can use in so many different contexts. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for this spreadsheet here and then go back to sharing the document. So for the final part is just, where do you get this information? You don't necessarily have to take a class. You could take a class. But I wanted to share, these are some of the places that I get and have learned about Excel, and honestly, any computer program. It doesn't just have to be Excel. Google and YouTube. I remember the first time I talked to somebody in our institutional research, I'm like, I need to create this complex spreadsheet and I don't know how to do it. And he's like, huh, let's just hop on Google and type it in. And I was just really surprised that there's so many resources on the internet, because so many people have been like you looking for the same type of solution. You can see how to create specific types of spreadsheets, how to use specific features. There's overviews, there's tutorials, um, troubleshooting specific problems. There's sometimes bugs and glitches with Excel or any program, and this can help you realize it's not you, it's not user error, it's just a bug that unfortunately can't be fixed. If you have any question, just start typing. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm trying to look for, but the checking out some of the search results helps you kind of know what the name of the feature is that you're interested in. Um, so that's one resource. YouTube has sometimes folks literally just walking through step by step how to do things. You'll be surprised at how many things that are available there. You can ask around at your school or your organization. There might be somebody that's proficient in Excel that can help you. um, either design a spreadsheet or learn how to use a specific feature, or even, if they have the time and ability, they might be able to create it for you. But there's a lot of folks that have knowledge. If your organization offers access through LinkedIn, I know University of Oregon does. I don't know, what other, schools or universities or organizations, but LinkedIn Learning has a lot of classes. There was literally a class I found today called, actually, I just logged into to LinkedIn and it knows that I like Excel. So it popped up a new class I hadn't heard of that's called Excel Tips Weekly, which is literally just one new thing that you might not have known. I posted a link in this document to the OTA shared drive. So they have some Excel templates that you can use. I posted the link in the chat of how you can register to be added to that drive. There's not a ton of resources, but I think part of the goal is if you have any really cool resources, whether they're Excel or templates or documents you use with your students, just having things in one place for other TRIO professionals to be able to use. This document also has instructions about how to just look for spreadsheets. You can actually just filter by the type of thing that you want to look for. Some of the other templates that are on the OTA shared drive there's a pre-college student tracker, an SSS student tracker, upward bound time and effort form. There's a senior checklist. I put in our own participant and eligibility trackers. So there's a lot of places you can look for information. You don't have to be overwhelmed or know everything all at one time, but those are some examples of places you can start digging if you want to learn something else. So that is everything that I had listed for my presentation today. Oh yeah, so there was a question in the chat that said, are we going to be sending out a video of this? Which is great, is that OTA, Raman actually recorded this, so you will be able to access this later. And then this Word document that I use is kind of the to go through today, as well as um, the sample spreadsheets are all going to be on the OTA drive. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. If you would like to chat about anything Excel, now is the time. If you have any questions or want to share with other people how you use Excel or any other cool tips or tricks that you have that you love, feel free to unmute yourselves. Or if you have any questions about what I just presented about as well, feel free to jump in. But it's been a pleasure talking with y'all today.
Thank you so much, Natalie. It's so great to see you.
Oh, it's so great to see you too, Sharon. How's your day going?
Crazy. We have
Yeah.
Trio Day tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been doing certificates and putting them in folders and getting all the budget for everything
Oh
and
my gosh.
solidifying our catering and oh.
Oh my gosh. And
So,
hi, Catherine. I don't remember if I've met you in person before, but it's nice to see you.
how are things for you?
Good. We actually just had a huge event yesterday. Hi, Catherine.
I was muted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, I just wanted to say, I've never been to any of the trainings. I had an hour free time, so I thought I'd jump in.
Oh, cool.
But a lot of what I do is in Bloomin. So,
Yeah.
Bloomin generates almost everything that I need. So,
That's amazing. And
I
and if
know.
if if that's
Yeah.
working for you, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you for some of I don't know. I don't know I mean, you know a lot more about Excel than I do. I just know the basics, so.
Well, yeah, but it's just I think it's just so cool because like I feel like every year I just add more and more. I remember talking to my boss at Gear Up a while ago, and I don't know, cutting and pasting something, and she's like, you can just double click and it'll fill that in. I was like, I did not know that. Thank you for showing me. But yeah, well, thanks so much for dropping in. A lot of the trainings are really great, but it's hard to sometimes get away, especially if you're helping students and doing a lot of other work. So
Thank you for the tips. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. It was nice to see you today, Catherine.
You too.
Bye, Sharon. I'm assuming you have to get going. Oh,
So good to see you.
yeah, so good to see you too. But yeah, we're doing good. We just had an event yesterday that was um we partnered with another program, the Center for Multicultural Academic Excellence, I think it is, but like it's another sort of advising program on campus. And we had a graduation celebration and it was so much work, but it was so fun.
I mean, it's so worth it.
Oh,
I
it
mean,
was.
they'll never forget it.
No, and it's just, because I don't get to work really directly with the students very much, except for when they're, helping them get admitted into the program, but I don't do any of the advising or anything like that. And
Neat.
like some of them were like, you guys literally saved my life, and like, like counseling and being able to cry in their office. And one student, she started at U of O like 9 years ago, and she took a break for a while, but she had like and one of our advisors has been here that whole time. She's like, I've known Katie through my entire educational journey, and the fact that she's like making it is just amazing. So
Oh, I was wearing my blue trio jacket, and
oh,
Harry was having a medical test, and I went in there, and the sonographer said, "Oh, I would have never made it through without trio."
really?
I mean, and I don't typically wear my trio stuff much, outside of work.
Yeah.
And she just gravitated to it, and I
Oh,
had her send me a whole thing on what they helped her do.
oh, how sweet is
So,
that?
yeah, I mean,
That's
it was
really cool that you
great.
followed up on it too. You're like,
Yeah,
please,
yeah, I
please.
I happen to have a card with me, amazingly, and
That
I was able to
that
just
makes me think
hand
I
her my
better grab
card.
my card to put in my wallet too. But
Yes, and she sent me the most beautiful email about that she never would have made it without Trio, and that their advisors helped her, through classes and getting through all kinds of issues. And it was a wonderful testimonial.
oh,
So,
that is just so cool.
yeah. And I actually ended up sending that to one of the senators.
Oh,
So
good. That's like literally that's so funny. Like what like
it's
you
like, how
know,
did I, for me to wear the jacket and have her as the sonographer, I was like, it was like all those little pieces. It was like meant to be.
yeah, exactly. Oh,
So,
that's so cool. And also like I just saw the email, I guess I don't know, yesterday or today that all the representatives, like Democratic and Republican in Oregon, like signed on to that letter. And I was like, I don't know, that
which
was just really
I
cool.
totally expected that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this is something that really has bipartisan support.
exactly. So that's my hope too, that people will see that and do that. But
I
uh,
I am not worried at all. I think everything is going to be fine.
I appreciate that. I think, I don't worry as much partly because I'm an admin person, so I feel like, oh, I can find a job. Hopefully, more than that, it's also that I trust that God's in control, like whatever's meant to be. Um, but yeah, it is hard to be in a waiting position, and I feel like both of those things makes me a little less nervous than some other folks, and I feel grateful for that. But also, I don't want anybody to be nervous. It's hard.
Yeah,
But I'm glad that you have faith about it, so that's good.
I lost my job in the mathematics department 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and I can't tell you the tailspin that I went in.
Mm,
And I just thought, you know what? This is my next opportunity. I feel like this is a test,
mm.
and I'm trying to do better than I did back then.
That's what a great like attitude too, because it's
So,
like it's not on. Maybe that's like a helpful thing too. It's like not all or nothing. It's not like you're perfect at it or you're terrible. You know,
yeah,
like
but I'm trying to do better than I did before.
yeah,
And I have not had a sleepless night, and I've really been at peace with things, and it's going to be okay.
yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm trying to
That's
wind
great,
things around
especially
and
because
do
you were
better.
saying, yeah, that's so great. Especially because you said too, Western is like facing a lot of financial
Oh,
things.
oh my gosh, we could fold.
Oh yeah, and like we just got this very like not stern, I don't know what's the word, grim email from the president basically
Did
saying
you
like,
really?
yeah, it
But I
wasn't
thought
like
you guys were doing good.
well, it's not like it wasn't like so much we're gonna fold. It was basically saying like, hey, we've had a lot of cuts to federal research money,
Oh,
and we are not taking in as many out-of-state students as we used to, which has been one of our main drivers of income. So there's like kind of this perfect storm of different things that is making our financial outlook not look very good. I think they're probably just, I'm like, it wasn't very solution oriented, but I think maybe it was saying that basically there's gonna be a bunch of cuts. That's what I'm guessing. And so they probably just wanna um not soften the blow, but like help people. It wasn't like go find another job. I'm trying to look to see if I can find but it was like it was a little grim, but I'm like, okay,
oh,
well, whatever happens, like
yeah. Oh,
what
we got a really, it was one that the provost sent out to all the students, and it basically said, we will get the classes you need to graduate.
wow.
It was like, but that doesn't sound good for students that are
Yeah,
coming in.
right, exactly. You're
Like,
like it's
oh,
kind of like when
it
you
didn't
see
sound
like clean
cheery.
beds on like a hotel. You're like, isn't that a bare minimum? Like, wouldn't finding the classes be the bare minimum? You're like,
You're right. Oh,
yeah.
so
But yeah, it was funny. It was like, dear colleagues, we have a difficult message to share with you today about the financial outlook for our institution. I'm
it's
like, oh,
never
okay.
anything you want to see.
Yeah, but it was basically saying like we're gonna do it, we're gonna be fine. But I'm like, it wasn't
Right.
really any specific cuts, but I'm like, oh, I guess you're thinking about cutting a bunch. So
Ah, yeah,
let's
we're
see
looking
what
at uh 2.5 million cuts this summer and 2.5 million cuts next summer.